Hi there, and welcome to another episode of Ronan Nazarene Talks. I'm one of your hosts, Solitary Ronan from Solitary Ronan Films.
And I'm the other one. Don't worry about me. I'm fine.
And today, because it's spooky season, we're joined by two frightening people, Volk Trog and Chris, also known as Chris Mohan. And we're going to talk about, seeing it's coming up for Halloween, we're going to talk about scary non-horror films instead of talking about non-scary horror films.
But what the biggest fear ever so far? Chris has lost his glasses. That's an old age fear. That's
yes.
I'm going by sound alone here. That's all that's happening right now.
Yes.
I can see nothing.
Yeah.
So please don't operate any dangerous machinery while you're on the podcast.
Yeah. Yes. So, yeah, this was my terrible idea.
You can tell.
Yeah, and everyone said yes, I'll do it, and then it was like I remember the same thing of we're starting the list. It was like, what the hell? Including the person who made the suggestion.
Good.
But,
That's good.
but in my defense, I think I was drunk when I thought of it, and then I said to Ronan, "What about this idea?" And then he said it was a good idea, and
Ronan's fault. Good.
So we have to blame wine for this.
Things that people find scary or horrific can come in all shapes and sizes. So it's not necessarily your usual horror fare, because personally there's plenty of horror films that I don't actually find scary in any way, shape or form.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but the thing is that I picked like 20 films and I actually find only one of them scary, but I had to kind of over-intellectualize this topic and think like what film has maybe like scary themes or scary politics or something like that, or scary atmosphere, but I don't really find anything scary.
Yeah,
I have such a high tolerance for this.
Apprentice with Donald Trump is one I should have went for. It's only at the cinema though yet, so I haven't got there.
Well, yeah. Home Alone 2. It's in Home Alone 2. There's that. If you want to see real fear, you can go to Solitary Ronan's videos at the moment with his cats modeled their backsides.
Yes. Unless that's your thing, obviously.
Yeah, but if you want fear, you know.
I thought it was
Ronan shall provide.
I thought it was King Kong remake where he was knocking over cameras and everything, just destroying all of the world that we can see. Oh, well.
Yeah.
If only.
Yep.
So who wants to make the first choice that everybody will go, what?
Let Simo do it with one of the films no one's heard of. I think that's the best way to start. You can't say something we're going to say.
Well, I'll have to adjust these Blu-rays here, but yeah. So the first one here is from this box set, the Yoshida box set, and it's Heroic Purgatory, which I did a long podcast episode on, but so this is one of those kind of incomprehensible, non-narrative type of films, and it has that kind of brutalist cinematography, some like really weird, surreal imagery, and kind of a weird vibe. And I think what is often scary is the things that we don't understand, the kind of very mysterious films, and this is one of those that it's just so hard to understand and get what it is about, but at the same time it's just so beautiful. So yeah, I'm waiting for you guys to watch this, but again, I'm not holding my breath.
Yeah, he says we haven't heard of this one. I've got it. I just haven't watched it. I haven't seen. I haven't seen him for 2 years. I'm going to watch this month. It's only 2 years.
It's our next human condition.
Yeah,
I mean, I'm saying we'll get to it.
Yeah, I was planning, but it's not been the best of years for me, so I've pushed back. But I will get to it.
But you've done a great job in selling it, and that you'll watch it and you'll have no idea what it's about. I mean, that's a pretty good in.
I love those types of movies more than anything else. So,
yeah.
Chris, do you want to have a go?
Well, I'll go next. I'm going to go for what I think is the obvious answer. That's the answer to every prompt that is a non-comedy comedy or non-horror or any of those things. I'm going for One Cut of the Dead from Third Window Film, which is a zombie movie about the making of a zombie movie. And it could be seen from the outset, from the first 20 minutes, that it's a horror movie of sorts. But obviously it's about the behind the scenes, so to speak, and sort of what it takes to make a movie. And sort of, it's just very clever. sort of ironically funny, in a way that I think everybody can sort of get a bit of joy out of it. Even my wife has seen One Cut of the Dead. She braved the first 30 minutes. She can't even watch Chitty Chitty Bang Bang, and she made it through One Cut of the Dead. She can't make it through most episodes of Doctor Who, and she made it through One Cut of the Dead. So if that's not a recommendation of a non-scary horror movie, then I don't know what is. And plus, it's just brilliant.
So you like torturing your wife now? That's my takeaway.
I mean, I'm just trying to see where her boundaries are. You know, that's all that it is. It's not really torture. It's more of an investigation so that I can torture in the future.
All right. You're such kind
for science. For science.
Yeah, science. Yes, indeed.
Yes. All right. Okay, we believe you. So I'll let Ronan go then.
Well, obviously these perhaps are from a younger age, but I'm going to just talk about quickly 3 parts of Disney films. So the first is The Fox and the Hound, which is fairly distressing anyway, but the bear attack at the end, I saw this in the cinema when I was obviously younger than I am now, and the bear attack is pretty savage. That's actually one of the scariest villains, and it's not even really a villain because it obviously doesn't talk. But the bear attack gave me the willies for quite some time. And obviously, overall, it's a moral of, you can't be friends with people who are different. Even if you try, there's always obstacles. So you're better off not being friends with anybody. That's what I took from it anyway.
All right, that's good.
Yes. The obvious one is Pinocchio, which has fairly scary elements, but obviously the boys turning into donkeys, which is obviously a metaphor for puberty and turning into soccer hooligans and wife beaters and other things like that. But when the boys turn into donkeys, that's a pretty scary metamorphosis scene. Plus the whale is pretty scary as well.
Can I ask you a question? I think it's a metaphor for someone who shows his wife One Cut of the Dead.
No, not necessarily. No.
Yeah. Right.
Maybe Cannibal Holocaust on the first date. Maybe.
Yeah.
Anthropophagus. Yeah.
Yeah, and then of course the Jungle Book for the terrible tiger abuse at the end of the film, where they're tying a flaming branch to a tiger's tail. That was horrific, and definitely scarred me for life.
Oh.
Well, obviously Mowgli didn't get disemboweled, which scarred me even more. But don't tie flaming branches to tigers' tails, kids, because that is pretty horrific.
Yeah.
Obviously, Disney have more kind of dark moments, but that's kind of 3 that stood out.
Yeah, I just knew that you were gonna pick the Jungle Books.
Yeah. And Dumbo, come on, Dumbo. I remember showing Dumbo to my nephew, and the psychedelic scene just terrified him. We had to turn it off. It was like, no. Too much.
And even though I haven't got it on my list, Bambi is the movie that has scarred more people from Disney movies than probably any other.
Yeah, and also when you think Baloo's dead, that's pretty hardcore. And then of course the ultimate betrayal when Mowgli goes to a nose twitching wee girl instead of talking animal friends. Hello.
Yeah, a metaphor for normal.
Yeah. Disney's terrifying. Not just the racism and anti-Semitism and all of that, but
the other stuff too.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I'm going to go boring here. I did a lot of them where there's double bills of things that you'd find out a director had done 2 films that were of this area or whatever, or there's a theme, there's 2 films you have to kind of cover. So I'm going for Threads and War Game, the War Game and Threads for Nuclear Holocaust, because we might be going there soon. So if you want to be depressed, first of all, you want to be depressed, try to watch lots of nuclear Holocaust films in a row, like I did. You will be depressed. It's not a good idea. Do not make my mistake. I implore you. But the Threads has just been re-shown on TV over here, and a lot of people are disturbed by it, but it's like, that's for disturbing, that is a silver medal. Compared to the War Game, that's nothing. The War Game is that I feel my life is ending, depression level event. It's like this is what happens in nuclear holocaust, and it's horrific. Oh, here we go.
Oh, special guest.
The cat.
Growing out of the back of
Got something growing out of my head. Yes.
Yes. It's a
Like to get
mutation
ahead
from
in
nuclear
advertising.
war.
Yes.
Yeah, nuclear war mutation. Yep. So yeah, I mean, I just thought that was the obvious ones. They're not horror films, but they are scary because it's like if a nuclear weapon goes off, this is what happens, and it's absolutely horrific. You know.
To be fair, Peter, I thought when you said that the first time, the war game, it translated in my head as war games. And I was like, well, I mean, that's an interesting choice, for sure. Yeah, computer games, end of the world, sort of a similar theme, but maybe not as scary as
Nuclear Holocaust.
Yeah, war games pretty hardcore.
Yeah. So I just thought if good to get that one out of the way. Nuclear Holocaust. It's perfect follow-up to Disney.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it's first steps. We're nearly like doing an order of things progressing in your way through. Start off with Fox and the Hound, go to Jungle Book, and then Threads. Great advice.
Yes.
So we have the plebeian redneck. Yep. Yeah.
Well, my next one is a bit similar to the nuclear holocaust ones in a way, but it's from this Rossellini war trilogy. It's Germany Year Zero. It was just filmed after World War II, and it shows the devastation in Europe, all the ruins and everything. And there's this kind of horrific scene when a young child jumps off a building and dies. And yeah, it's just absolutely devastating and very depressing film, and quite scary, and shows the dark side of humanity better than most films. So
yeah, it's a pretty amazing film considering when it was made.
Grim. I find actually a lot of those films that are made so close to the end of World War II kind of a bit head trippy in some ways, and that they're kind of talking so openly about a lot of things that must have been very raw at that time. Like I can think of things like Disney stuff that does something very similar, and you're like, oh my God, I can't even. This amount of time later, can't comprehend how you can think about that as art.
Yeah, that whole trilogy is amazing.
Yeah. See, I haven't watched it yet. It's one of those ones that's like I've got it on my thing. It's like I can see it. Just like I will watch it. I can literally look up and see it just now. Oh, here we go.
I mean,
Godzilla has arrived. Yeah.
Jeez, I didn't bring Godzilla. That would have been a good one for next. That would have been a good link.
You can choose it. You can choose and not show it. It's quite easy.
Oh, I know that's the case. Let's exhaust this pile first. Okay, I'm gonna go in similar theme to Ronan's. This kind of there is a level of kids film that is based on the idea that it's sort of terrifying, but really not really. So I'll go for the Gruffalo.
It's
very much the imaginary monster film, bit like Ronan's cat. You know, see, if you're watching this on a very large screen TV or on a projector, what you've just seen probably terrified you to no end, even more than our faces. Sitting there beside. So the Gruffalo is basically the storytelling aspect of imagine a creature that is bigger and scarier than you can ever imagine, and then kind of turning that on its head as many of the adaptations of Julia Donaldson kind of stuff does. And while it is in theory supposed to be scary, it is much more a metaphor for what's in your head is much more scary than practicality or otherwise. So there you go.
Rodin?
I'm going to go for a couple of Dardennes. So I'm going to go with The Sun. Now, obviously, if you're not aware of the film, it's a man who teaches carpentry, and this young boy comes in his class, and the man becomes a bit obsessed by him and follows him around. In typical Dardenne fashion, they just drop you in, so it's up to you to think of why this man is acting like that. And obviously, one reading of it is obviously a predatory. Well, he is obsessed, but a predatory obsessional reason, and obviously that's fairly horrific to people with children. The idea of human predators going after them. Obviously, I won't tell you what the reason is, but that can be seen in some way as your classic stalker film. And the second one is The Child. Apparently, quite a lot of people have children or are fond of them.
All right.
And obviously, in this one, it's a young couple who are struggling. So the boy sells the child, and then the horror is he's actually tries to get it back, and that's certainly the true horror of that one. But again, the Dardennes, obviously their style is they have no style, even though that becomes their style, and it is realism and grimness and just the complete randomness of life. So certainly for people who are concerned about children's welfare, both these films could be seen as horrific and scary.
Right. Okay.
You're up next, Peter.
Yeah, no.
Well,
Moving on.
I'm still taking in what you just said. That's all. I'll go with the shock in a second. Right. Mine's is a double bill of Tsukamoto films, which is Kotoko and Vital.
Oh yes.
Which Kotoko is about mental illness and what it does to a person, and it's done from the point of view of the person, and it's about the kind of effects of the illness on this one person. And Vital is about grief, the idea of what grief does to you, and it takes a metaphor of someone who's lost his memory after a crash, and his girlfriend's dying. He's trying to rediscover her through her actual dead body to try and figure out his memories, and it's a metaphor for grief though, and how do you process grief? And at the same time in Kotoko, it's how do you process your mind when it's not working the way other people's minds are in society and what it does to you. And to me, both of these ideas of grief and madness are scary. They're scarier than anything in a horror movie. And one of the things that Tsukamoto does is he makes sure the films are short so he can make the process as intense as possible, but then didn't outstay his welcome. Just like, this is what it's like, and you can imagine what happens after and around these situations. Like it's a never-ending struggle, really, in the mental illness area, and grief's idea of just how devastating grief is to people. And that's, I think, the horror things that we don't talk about much as horror, but they actually are things that affect people's lives in a way that's scarier than horror movies.
Yeah.
I also had Kotoko on my list.
All right.
I noticed the letterbox that it had a horror tag, so I was kind of thinking that maybe it's an actual horror film.
No, it's not.
Get it, but I don't know. But I had it on my list.
Well,
I had Vital on the list.
So both you can talk about what you think of them just now. Then, if we have something that the other person's got, the other person can also talk about why they chose it as well. Maybe it's a simpler way of doing it.
Obviously, Vital also has dissection scenes of the human body, which obviously some people it creeps people out and freaks people out. But Vital's absolutely fantastic, as is Kotoko. So.
Yeah, I think Kotoko, it feels like more of a horror film than many actual horror films, because I think the mental illness is often way more scarier than gore and stuff. Although this film also has some obviously blood because she's cutting herself and stuff, and also the crazy cinematography with all the handheld and how it's spinning around and everything. It just gives it a horror feeling as well, and it kind of makes you sick, like horror films should make you sick, I guess. Often they do not, but this film makes you sick.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I think it's hard to ignore Tsukamoto from this kind of this non-horror but scary. I think it's inevitable we're going to choose Tsukamoto. Seems his kind of field.
Yeah, because obviously in horror, most of it's as far away from reality as you can get, whereas obviously reality is far scarier than fantasy horror and escapism horror.
Yep. So we're back to the redneck for his next choice.
Well, one of you already mentioned this quickly, but it's the Human Condition trilogy. I guess it's a pretty obvious pick. Like I picked quite a few war films, I think, but this just has so much real world relevance. It shows how war, and you could also think politics in general, corrupts people with good values. And of course, this even has, I think, visually quite a lot of horror-esque imagery, like, for example, the last part and the last part of the last part when he's just walking in the snow endlessly. I think that's just pretty scary stuff. And yeah, it just kind of tells you everything about the human condition, and the human condition is extremely scary, unfortunately. So.
And the cat condition is also scary.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's the future I'm terrified of when the cats take over. Started off as they walked along your back to start, and then they walked in front of the camera. And again, a metaphor for your time is limited here.
Yeah. Those pure Chinese had it easy compared to us dealing with this cat. Let's hope no one ever sees this comment I just made.
Human Condition is both mind-blowing, bleak, scary in its own way. That kind of isolation of one man on his own and his own values gets sort of twisted against him in some ways is terrifying.
And it also gets more and more brutal as it goes along. It's like you think, well, we can't get more brutal than this. Oh yeah, it can. Yeah. And every moment gets more brutal, and it's like, oh my god. And you're thinking at the end of it, it's like, well, that's just one guy. I'm thinking about everyone else in the war, how they went through as well. It was just like, it's horrific.
Yeah,
definitely.
Chris?
Me, I'm going to go for a bit of a genre. I couldn't find the most obvious example of this, but is the horror-themed kung fu movie, Mr. Vampire being the most obvious, but things like Encounter of the Spooky Kind, Magic Cop, things like that, which kind of play in the idea that they have these people that are actually cards in most of these films, and they use the kind of horror genre as a way in to do the kung fu and the fighting back, so this sort of revenge thing. So, like, I know people that are afraid of the Hopping Vampire, and Mr. Vampire is actually terrifying way more than actual vampires because they act so abnormal in some ways. But again, I think that's they're fun movies rather than necessarily serious. And Encounters of the Spooky Kind is this idea that Sammo Hung is terrified all the time. And there are ghosts and stuff in it, but it definitely kind of shows that, the supernatural and the horror aren't necessarily the thing to be afraid of in some way.
Yeah, you've been Zoo Warriors as well.
Yes, I had that in my hand earlier on as well. Zoo Warriors and the Magic Mountain. Yeah, for sure. And
it's horrific being trying to understand the plot as well. Because the plot's kind of...
It's just a reason to have stuff on screen. That's pretty much the whole reason for those kind of things, yeah.
Yeah, I showed it to my nephew and it confused the hell out of him. He was like, what am I watching?
Yeah.
You also remember Hammer's Legend of the Seven Golden Vampires, which is also nice.
That's true. Yeah. Similar kind of idea is using the mysticism and the horror aspects in a kind of non-horror setting.
Yeah. So, yeah.
I'm going to go to a documentary that is in the argument for the greatest documentary of all time. It's The Happy-Go-Lucky Act of Killing.
Oh, yes.
And if this doesn't scare the shit out of you, I don't know what does. Again, it comes across as being really distasteful, and exactly what's going on, what the filmmakers doing, what am I doing watching it. And then something kind of happens that makes it kind of glorious, but it's the mixture of reality and history with fantasy, where Joshua Oppenheimer, the filmmaker, gets confessed murderers of a political regime to reenact the murders in the style of the films that they used to watch after killing people. and it's quite unbelievable, even though it's sadly real. Especially when they like recreate the massacre of a village, and then one of them kind of goes, "Oh, imagine how these people actually felt." It's just absolutely horrific, and it kind of is far more scary than any slasher film could be.
Yeah.
And what is scary is that I actually recommended that to my friend once, and he went to see it in the cinema, and he said that it was so boring, I didn't get the point. Like, how can you not get the point?
What
like,
the hell?
Pretty obvious. Like,
is he an ex-friend now?
No, he's still
it's one of those. Like, there's a theme of fear runs through every person that speaks in that movie. Like, it's just that they are very careful and guarded about what they say the whole way through it. It's just, honestly, it translates to the viewer very well, that kind of existential, long-held fear from youth. And
you have to do something to blow Werner Herzog's socks off, and it blew Werner Herzog's socks off, which he obviously promptly ate. But yeah, it's an amazing piece of work.
Okay. Guess it's my turn then.
Oh, yes.
All right. So I'm going for political comedies now. Right. So Four Lions, The Day Shall Come, and In the Loop, which are comedies, but also about horrific subjects that are politically relevant. So Four Lions is about Islamic terrorism, and that actually makes a comedy out of it and how useless they are, and a subject that people are terrified of approaching from any sides. And Chris Morris just went and did a comedy. It was like, yeah, this is scary, but also there's a lot of facts you don't know about this that's hilarious, and he actually made it funny, and you were on the side of Islamic terrorists for a lot of the film, even though you know they're wrong. And then The Day Shall Come. I'm not sure if many people have seen this one because I made a video on it and it got a whole 7 views, so I don't think it was. It's basically the Chris Morris follow-up, and basically
it's really hard to get.
Yeah. And basically, it's about those guys who were set up by the FBI as terrorists, when in fact they were just mad people in the different states of America who could be conned into looking like terrorists so the FBI could justify the budget. And it's hilarious and scary, but the kind of things people would do to suggest a threat so they can keep their jobs and keep their everything, get promotions, even though these other people are just going to jail for life because of it, to create fear and to create this political machine to keep going, which is more terrifying than most things you'd see of actual terrorism. Just the idea of what your own country would do, or what a neighbouring country with the same ideals as your country would do, just to keep themselves relevant, keep their war machine going. And finally, tied to that is In the Loop, which is the most famous of the three, which, because of the thick of it, about the madness that created the Gulf War and all the political machinations and bullshit that happened to get to the Gulf War, which is terrifying when you look at it and think, oh yeah, this is some of the madness we saw here, and some of the horrible decisions made. So I think political satire can be more terrifying than any horror movie. You know. And you've also Dr. Strangelove, which is but again, you kill a war horror. So you've got a lot of political stuff there that's kind of scary.
Excellent choice.
So it's my turn now. So I have Ingmar Bergman's Persona. I could have gone with Shame or The Virgin Spring as well, but again, this has lots of, I think, kind of scary, weird imagery, like, for example, that picture here. This one where their kind of identities starts clashing. I think that stuff is quite scary and horror-like, and this kind of goes back to what I said about Heroic Purgatory, that things that we don't understand and the weird and mysterious things are often more scarier than things that are very obvious.
Yes.
Cool.
Yeah, I mean, Bergman actually does a lot of scary films that are not obviously scary. I mean, he doesn't seem to be fearful of doing horror movie stuff as well, like suggesting gothic stuff or suggesting something horrific. But Yeah, a lot of times it's more emotionally scary. And
Yeah, Hour of the Wolf, obviously, and
yes,
the end of The Rite is pretty horror based.
If you look at this channel, we've covered quite a lot of Bergman films, and Rodens did Bergman a week or two ago, isn't it?
That's right.
Yeah, I did a couple.
For sure.
Yeah, I'm still waiting for Cat to make another appearance. I'm just watching. It's almost like you're waiting for the cameo.
They're playing in the corner, so you never know.
All right. Wait for the
More than one.
Yes.
Oh Jesus. This is honestly we're never getting to the end of the show with everybody alive. That's the way that's gonna go.
It's escalation.
Yeah, the bit I'm terrified is that I'm right next to one on the screen, so I'm thinking they might be able to just
jump over.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and give you a cuddle.
Yeah, don't like cats.
Yeah, it's
Murder Mittens.
Yeah, so yeah, it's a good choice. I mean, Persona is scary, and just when you can't quite work out why it's scary.
Yeah. Me next.
Yeah.
I'm going for, on your sort of theme, Peter, political. Scary. I'm going to go for No Birds by Jafar Panahi, who basically was incarcerated for his filmmaking in one case, and he gets released from prison and he decides to make more films about being incarcerated and not being able to talk about free speech and all of that kind of stuff. So he basically is a journalist that arrives in a small village close to the border, and he gets sort of embroiled in documenting life and that creating its own problem. But it does kind of create this sense of feeling trapped and not being able to speak freely and not being able to be yourself and express yourself, and the fact that somebody else is watching your every move, so to speak, at any stage, in which case to just use as a reason to lock you back up again. And I'm sure there are many movies that do similar kind of ideas and themes, but No Birds is the one I've seen most recently, and it's also terrifying because it sort of mirrors his life in a lot of ways.
Yeah. I mean, there's Taxi Turan as well, which is the filmmaker who went and he wasn't allowed to film, so he went and gave a taxi driver and filmed the scenes in the taxi.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I suppose Ensemble and stuff would have a similar sort of vibe to it as well. Again, that idea of not being able to speak freely within your own country or other than that. Yeah.
Are those cats killing each other?
Hopefully.
Yeah, just about it. Obviously, comedy and tragedy and comedy and horror aren't that far away from each other. So I think a film that kind of encapsulates that quite well is Monty Python's Meaning of Life, which is fairly brutalist. And obviously the idea that heaven is like Christmas for eternity is pretty terrifying in itself. But obviously we start, and it really is almost 7 deadly sins as well. We go from lust and gluttony and greed and capitalism and bloody homemade operations on the kitchen table. It's fairly a horrific film that, if it wasn't actually funny, would be fairly terrifying. So that's the Meaning of Life.
You've got the musical numbers, which are all great.
Well,
and
if you're not a fan of musicals, then obviously
I know, but some of the stuff they have is all about how a lot of places have a universe. Every Idols one, all about universe song, and you've got the.
I mean,
every
it's certainly. Yes, it's certainly terrifying to people who think they are the most important person in the world and they're the hero of their own story, regardless where they are. That's a fairly sobering fact, the fact that you're as relevant as a blade of grass. Try telling that to people, they don't like it.
Mm-hmm.
But people are mad. Isn't that the theme of this whole thing? People are mad. People are crazy.
Yes.
Yeah. Look at us four. It's not a good start.
I don't think we're an ideal cross-section of the population. But...
I mean, if the fact is the sanest sort of creature on this podcast is your cat, that's a bad sign. It was just right in the corner now. That's the sanest one we've got. Right. So I guess it's my turn again then.
For sure. Yeah.
All right. I'm going for Scum and Made in Britain. Alan Clark. Just because it's a look at Britain, and I don't think much has changed. I mean, Scum is a bit Boston, but it could be just the prison system, really, the way people are made to go to prison, and the kind of abuses they'll go through, and the territorial elements, and just the mix of pig ignorance, brutality to each other, and tribalism, and just the nastiness of the prison culture, and the nastiness of a certain percentage of the population who deserve to be in prison, but it's that thing of what do you do with these people who are hard to control? I think it's like all the horrors of stuff you don't want to think about, but it is. If you look now in Britain, there's a massive problem with the prison system, and it's like no one knows a clue what to do with it. And then Made in Britain is about the skinheads or the kind of lunatics who are educated but are also like racist, nasty, and just awful people, and have beliefs that are abhorrent. And what do you do with them? And that's horror beyond scarier than most horror films. That's the stuff is like, do you put them in prison where they just meet up with these other people who are just as bad as them? What do you do with them? Just to be that scary.
Yeah.
Don't get any jokes.
No jokes about Scum. No, none whatsoever. Scum has no jokes.
No.
I'll tell you what, this is a list of the most grim films you can watch.
But then that's kind of what horror films are supposed to be. They're supposed to be grim, challenging, upsetting, and of course nowadays mainstream horror is the complete opposite.
I saw Terrifier 3, and it's basically grim and depressing, but mainly because it's just misanthropic and there's nothing else there. And it's like, well, I'd rather be depressed with some sort of context, not just it's just lots of gore.
Yeah.
Give me context for my depression.
Yes. Plebeian.
Yeah,
so my next one, I think this is an actual horror movie, and this film really scares me, but most people would say it's like a mystery thriller. So it's Mulholland Drive. And David Lynch films are the only things that scare me. I just the other night had my monthly Twin Peaks nightmare where Laura Palmer signed my Twin Peaks poster. So that was, I mean, that's not a nightmare actually, but yeah.
I was waiting to find out what's the scary bit of that.
Were you dressed as an angel?
Pop was there as well, so that's always scary. But anyway, this film, like the last 20 minutes, is absolutely horrific. And for some reason, I always have a habit of watching this just before I go to bed, and then I cannot fall asleep because my mind is just all paranoid after I watch these types of David Lynch films. But of course, at the same time, this is also like the funniest films of all time. Like there are so many funny moments there and beautiful moments there as well. But again, the ending is just absolutely horrific. Yeah.
I mean, it taught me how to drink espresso properly.
There you go.
Yeah, well, that's good. I mean, David Lynch can scare me as well. I remember Twin Peaks, the cinema, the actual movie of it. It was pretty terrifying. And I think Lost Highways. Yeah, Lost Highways pretty creepy as well, because I watched it in projector recently, and it was pretty. Sorry, Chris, I had to bring up projector, but it's true.
I mean, every time it's as reliable as Simo bringing up David Lynch. Let's be honest. If anybody's got the drinking game, then as Ronan talks, drinking game, they're absolutely pissed already.
Available from all good bookstores.
Only bring it up when I know you're going to be watching or you're involved. It's only just annoy you. But I bring it up is because it's a big screen and it's like the atmosphere of Lost Highway is pretty creepy.
But it's that discombobulation that actually watching it on the big screen sort of enhances that kind of like you're not really sure where you are at any given stage, like a lot of Lynch film, like what exactly is happening. You've got like a lot of thematic pulls through from scene to scene, but it's that kind of trying to join it up and feeling that you're not quite 100% sure of what's going on at any given time. All the time.
Yeah,
because Lynch is one of the few filmmakers that you genuinely don't know what's going to happen next.
Yeah,
he's not a cookie cutter, predictable filmmaker.
Yeah.
Inland Empire, I thought it was pretty creepy as well. A lot of people don't like it, but I thought it was creepy because you really didn't have a clue where it was going, like at all.
Yeah. Obviously, the obvious one's a Razorhead. Or...
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Cool.
But Blue Velvet is a comedy also. Yeah. It's horror film for some, but comedy.
It's a comedy musical.
Yeah.
No, that's Little Shop of Horrors. Horror musical. My turn next. I'm going to go for two thematically linked films about trying to escape your past, whether that's abuse or not. So one is Sean Durkin's Martha, Marcy, May, Mary, and Marlene. And the other one is Shion Sono's Himizu. So both kind of talk about different starting points. So like Marcy is about somebody that's trying to escape from a cult and can she ever do it? Can she ever get away from the horrors of what happened there? And then Himizu, which is one of the most gut-wrenching depictions of people that are trying to escape from abusive pasts or otherwise. And in some ways, while I think it's just an absolutely magnificent film, I'm sort of glad I can't find a copy of it because it'll rip you up from the inside out in a lot of ways. It's very powerful and very moving, but those kind of things that some people maybe by the legacy or the things that happened in the past can never really have a normality or have some sort of escape from that past.
Himizu is really good. I've got the other one film, but I haven't watched it. One of those ones. But it's that thing is, I don't know what it's about. It's like I watched when I made for it, but I'm not quite in the.
But it's not quite Himizu because I think Himizu is astonishing. But yeah.
Yeah, I haven't seen it either of them.
Oh, yeah. If you're looking for a rollicking good time on a Sunday night, pick something else.
Yes.
I'm going to pick one from a filmmaker that could probably have quite a few. It's Herzog's Aguirre Wrath of God, which is more kind of, it has a dreamy feel to it, but it could easily be a nightmarish feel to it. People die, people kind of look down and they've got an arrow in them. There's some kind of nightmare logic. It's also about, obviously, power corrupting and making people do terrible things to each other all over. Yeah, Chris seems to have left.
Yes.
About, the glory of gold and the glory of achievement and getting your name in the history books. Obviously, anything with Klaus Kinski is fairly horrific anyway when he's in crazy mode. Obviously, Watchcheck you could put in this category as well, and there's plenty of others because Herzog himself has got a little bit of the madness and horror in him as well. But Aguirre Wrath of God just has this strange feel, and the fact that you know that Herzog put them down rafts, and if they died, they probably just died. It's fine.
Yeah. Chris, were you scared of the mention of Klaus Kinski? Was that what set you off?
I just needed to get a drink, dear God.
I'm not afraid of no Klaus Kinski.
No, I'm sure he is.
Yes. Yeah, it's fairly terrifying.
All right. Well, I go to my Shion Sono one then, since we had Sono. So I'll go for Strange Circus and Cold Fish, which are two Sono films I thought were pretty scary. Strange Circus, I'm not sure if anyone else has seen it but me, but
I have seen it.
You've seen it. It's pretty disturbing.
It's
also a film you don't want to explain to anybody because it sounds so weird, but it's also, and we just watch it, it's weird. But it's insane. It's utterly insane, and you're thinking, how did they get away with this? What the hell? It feels like a waking nightmare. This film just feels like pure waking nightmare, and there's so many disturbing things in it. It's just like, why God? It makes Himizu look optimistic in comparison. And Cold Fish is a bit of serial killer, and it's pretty brutal as well. But the thing is, compared to Strange Circus, it feels quite tame, really. So, yeah, but those two are pretty creepy. There's a lot of Sion Sono films that are pretty creepy, but those two jumped out at me as being the creepy ones.
Yeah, but there's always some dark humor there as well. That they are
I know.
funny in a way, at least
Yeah.
for a weirdo like me.
Cool.
I just nodded. I saw Chris nodding silently a lot. I was thinking he's going mad.
I mean, there's another choice, but it's good that we that's linking together. People will think we've planned some of this. This was not planned.
Yes.
At all.
Yeah.
Let's see if the redneck can keep it going.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I have a French New Wave film. So this is The Nun from Jacques Rivette. And this even has like a very horror-like score. It's kind of like The Shining with those kind of weird sounds and noises, and it kind of gives you that scary atmosphere. And I think for me, this kind of personally scary as it is about someone who kind of is like an outsider, that everywhere she goes, she feels that she gets rejected and things like that. And there's this kind of sense of anxiety. So I can really relate to those types of feelings. So it's scary in that way, but also in just how it's made and shot. And again, the score, that's very horror-like as well, even though the story itself is not that horrific, even though it kind of ends in suicide though. But yeah, it's kind of horrific in the story-wise as well. Yeah.
Weird film.
Yeah, I haven't seen that one yet. I've got it, but I haven't watched it. It's that thing of I've got a few Rivette films I need to watch, but you know, Rivette's not something you just chuck on.
Yeah. Back to me.
Yeah.
What could I go for? Right, I'll go for this one because it's sort of very thematically links to something Ronan was talking about earlier on about the scariness of family. So I'll go for Aftersun and about the scourge of relationships and actually looking back on times gone past, of happier times, that kind of stuff. I don't know what I can say about Aftersun aside from by the end of it, it is the last scene of it is almost terrifying in its own right for basically showing about stages of life and how finite some of those stages of life are, and for making you ponder and think about what once was or otherwise. But it's for somebody's first film like it was for Charlotte Wells, it's incredibly powerful and incredibly thought-provoking as this young girl kind of looks back at old videotapes of her holidays. That's essentially it.
I've just bought this, but I haven't watched it yet. I've just bought it like last week.
Oh God, Himizu Aftersun double bill. It's absolutely calling out to be. Warm up with one, finish it with the other.
All right. This is now a murder attempt, I think.
Yeah, I still haven't got to that one, not surprisingly. But if we're talking about family and the need for family to be happy, you've got to talk about Bigger Than Life, which is a heartwarming tale of addiction and has the scariest kind of family snapshot picture at the end of the film, probably ever taken at the end of a film. Yeah, and because it's in Technicolor, everything's bright and shiny, but as James Mason gets slowly driven round the bend by lovely drugs. Again, this need to fit in, the need to be happy, is something I think we can all relate to. Especially, you've got to have the perfect family, allegedly, even though nobody does. It's just a wonderfully cautionary tale about never have a family. Oh, and never do drugs. I mean,
Yeah.
I talked about this on my podcast episode about that one, but it kind of also reminds me of all the Republican nutjobs in America today, like when he's a school teacher and when he goes crazy, like what he talks about, we need to go back and you need to be real man and things like that. And it reminds me of all these nutjobs today.
Well, my choices and next choices of a family and crisis and friend family of such as David Cronenberg with Crash and Spider. Linking to your family theme, Crash is about a creation of a informal family of people who are into car crashes and sexually intrigued by the possibility of car crashes and what it does to you. And then Spider, which is about the Herler family of you slowly going mad. Both of these are scary movies. If you, one of them is if you're really conservative, that's the scariest movie ever because it gets banned in some places because it was, oh my god, you can't have this idea. This is too terrifying for us. Even though it's like it's just an idea. No one does this. No one's ever done this. It's an idea. It's a bit of imagination. And Spider is about, again, madness and what happens if someone's going mad, and but what happens when the state ignores all the crazy people and just throws them out and just doesn't do anything with them and lets them go slowly crazy, and the kind of tragedy of that kind of situation. So both of them are really scary in different ways, the way Cronenberg can be, where it's not obvious horror, but it's the horror of situations, horror of a thought process that's alien to you, even though with Cronenberg it's always ambiguous. It's like for some people it's scary, for other people it's something else, but it's just a sense of these are movies are things you don't want to think about. Cronenberg does a lot of things that no one else wants to think about. He makes films about.
Yeah, Kotoko and Spider make a nice double bill.
Yes. I realize I was talking. I've already talked about this subject, going mad. It's like it's almost like I'm going mad myself.
As if.
Yeah. Yeah. Says the man with a cat crawling at his head earlier on.
Fair enough. Maybe you're just imagining it. I don't have cats.
But yeah, it's my turn again, and more Japanese stuff, of course. So it's the Sword of Doom, which is about this serial killer Ronin who goes in a rampage and kills all types of people. And of course, he's already mad in the beginning, but then in the end, he goes even madder and starts seeing like hallucinations and everything. And yeah, it's just full on nihilism and darkness. And yeah, it's also like how it's shot. It's very, very bleak, and like the fight scenes are some of the best of the time. So they are way more brutal, the fight scenes, that what you usually see in the 60s. But this is just, yeah, one of the best. Yeah, love this movie. More people should talk about it.
Yeah, Okamoto is really underrated.
Again, it's on my watch list. I've got it, but I haven't.
Oh, it's great. It's really great. Definitely on the horror side of Samurai.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, you could even say it's a full-on horror film, but I think it's not classified as horror. But
yeah, I would agree with that. Right, time to go for almost Lynchian, I suppose, in some ways. I'll go for Ennis Men by Mark Jenkins. Or could I think most of us are fans of Mark Jenkins here and his rather weird approach to cinema in some ways. But this kind of, again, that kind of discombobulated feeling of things out of time, out of place, things that don't belong, lingering shots of things that may have significance, may not have significance. And another film that I think you're supposed to come away with that didn't make entire sense, but you have to take away from what you want out of the film and the thematic feelings of it, etc. But terrifying in its own little ways, as the front cover kind of is often described to being almost Wicker Man-like in its own way in its imagery. So, yeah, Ennis Men.
Well, on that regard, I'm going to go with Bait
Hey!
by Mark Jenkins, which, again, it's not a horror film, but the way he shot it, it's black and white. It's about outsiders coming into a local fishing community. From the first frames, there's just this sense of dread and impending doom throughout the whole thing. You know, it's political, as in, you know, the sense of small communities and the disappearance of small communities. But it's also about family as well. It's also obviously about nature, the same way Ennis Men's about as well. Yeah, both films are really strong. I come and go which one I prefer, but Bait is it just has impending doom, and it does have some kind of horror-based shots as far as kind of what's in the cottage that the rich. I'm not sure whether are they Londoners, Chris. I can't remember, but certainly the richer city folk. And you know those rich city folk, they're always getting into trouble when they come down to rural places. Yeah, not a horror film, but it feels like one. And there's a lot more going under the waves, if you like, with the film as well. So both Mark Jenkins ones are in the same ballpark.
Nice.
Chris, I just saw your message from 10 minutes ago.
Before you started ripping into me? Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah. Yeah.
It just, for everybody watching, it just said, be right back. You know?
Yes.
I said BRB.
BRB, it did. I mean,
yeah.
Peter had to Google it to see what it meant, but it's fine.
No, I knew what it meant. It was just like, I just didn't know there was a private chat thing. So, what's this message coming up? All right, there we go.
You had to ask it, a passing 8-year-old.
Yeah.
Can I go, sir?
Right. So, I thought I'd go for cheerful this time. So I'm going for Come and See and Shore. So,
lovely.
Yeah. So, yeah, I thought they'd be a good double bill because they're utterly depressing in every possible way. Come and See is the happy-go-lucky story of a child surviving World War II and the devastation it does to his soul. Is that you one of yours as well?
Yeah.
I mean, it's very much stretched.
How can it not be? Yeah.
Not a horror movie. Like, I mean, that's but the most horrific film that there's ever been.
I know that was the thing. I was like, I kept off with, well, Ronan's going to choose it soon. I know he's going to choose it. It's like I kept on giving you the space to choose it.
It's almost the film you think of immediately. But...
Yeah. So I actually gave it a thought. Well, either Ronan or Samuel would choose this one, so I'm giving them space. I'm not going to choose it early. But yeah, it's brutal. It's just so brutal. And Shore might even one film that's even more brutal than that, which is just because it's 10 hours of telling you the Holocaust. It's like reality is so much more brutal, and what human beings do to each other are so much brutal than any horror film. You know, this just is. And Shore and this film kind of shows it. It's like we are the monsters. There's no doubt we are the monsters, really.
And I guess you could add like Alain René's Night and Fog to that as well, because it's like a shorter show, basically. So,
yeah, those tracking shots of hair and glasses and shoes are pretty terrifying.
Yeah, it's just again, I did a Holocaust season. I watched way too many Holocaust films in a row, and also at the same time I was doing a Bresson season. It was a really fun time. I don't know why those two came together. So,
yes.
You know, the things I do to make videos. So, Redneck,
yeah,
top that for depression.
Jesus.
Well, this isn't gonna top that, but it's one of my favorite films of the 21st century. It's a Russian film from Andrei Zhuagintsev. It's The Return. So this is about a family, a single mother, 2 boys, and their father returns suddenly. And we can see that the father is some kind of a criminal and an awful person, but we don't really know that much about him. Everything is very ambiguous. And that's where the scary part is, that we don't know. It's about the unknown. It's about that atmosphere. And I think people who have had like toxic father figures in their life, like that makes the viewing experience even scarier, because you can really relate to it. But it's kind of like a modern Tarkovsky drama thriller-esque film, and I absolutely love it. I would highly recommend it.
Yeah, I need to see that.
Yeah, it even has a Tarkovsky-like title. I mean, if Tarkovsky was going to make another film, you would have called it The Return. Go, The Sacrifice. Well, nice. Haven't seen it yet either.
Yeah. It's one of those films that's always, I need to see that film, but
yeah. I mean, this artificial eye Blu-ray is pretty cheap usually. So.
I was going to say, like, you can pretty much take up any of those artificial eye kind of Blu-rays for next to nothing, and you're almost guaranteed to have a great movie. That's,
And they've released all of his other films too, and they are good too, the ones that I have seen. So.
Okay, go ahead, Sir Pete.
It's more about the time than the actual cost. It's more like so many films to watch.
Yeah, that is for sure.
And it always feels that the more films you watch, the more there is. So it's just how it
opens up another door, for sure. Yeah, right. Me next.
Yep.
Too many left. This is good. I'll go for a more. I've got to go for Michael Haneke. Somewhere of that kind of existential dread of the end of life, so to speak. The horror that comes from that is basically the story of a man that's caring for his wife, that both of them are quite elderly. There's a finality to life at that stage, but the kind of thing that his life has now become caring for her life, and the kind of nihilist kind of feelings that gives out. And basically any film that is about loss in some way, or impending loss in this case, very, very powerful, very, very scary in its own way, and often very emotional, as Amor is.
Yeah, it's in the backlog. I'm still to watch it.
Oh, another happy-go-lucky.
Yep.
Yeah.
Week-long.
I'm gonna have a fun Sunday night.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Haneke is Mr. Cheerful.
Yes.
That's his nickname in cinema.
Yes. And Mr. Know-It-All as well.
Yes. Yeah, he kind of puts me off just because his interviews just put me off, because it's like, he sounds kind of a dick.
And that's never happened before with film directors.
No. I know, but I think with funny games really put me off a little bit. It was like, this is just, you're stating the obvious as if it's a bit of genius.
Yeah, but the film that Chris mentioned, that doesn't have that Haneke cringe that Funny Games has, I think.
Yeah. Well, somebody mentioned him earlier. So this is horror of, you can do nothing wrong, but you just get caught in the wheels of the machine, and that's Bresson's L'Argent, where things can just escalate beyond your control, and then you end up thinking there's no way out apart from drastic measures. A forged note gets passed and somebody takes the fall for it. And I think we all have a fear of being out of control, and our fate's decided for us. And that's certainly true of the character in L'Argent.
Yeah. I've got two Bressons as well, so I'll go with them. I've got Machete and Femme Douce as two of my choices. Machete is maybe the most depressing film. It's even more depressing than L'Argent, and L'Argent's depressing. L'Argent is really depressing. L'Argent's brilliant, but really depressing. But Machete, I first saw this. That was one of the first things I saw of Bresson in the cinema, and there was a series on in the Edinburgh Film Festival one year, and oh my god, the end is so. I mean, it's brutal throughout, and she this girl go through these horrible experiences, but the end's devastating. The end's like, oh my god, I can't believe I'm watching this. It's just so brutal, and and then Femme Douce is about women committing suicide and the repercussions, but it's always cheerful compared to Machete, which is about a young girl going through all this. So yeah, Bresson is, Haneke's basically part-timer compared to Bresson when it comes to depression.
There you were, sitting with your popcorn and your big number one finger, waiting for Machete to come on, and destroyed.
Machete's the most depressive film of all time, bar none. I cannot think of anything that's even remotely close to it. In fact, it sort of doesn't work for me because it's so depressing the whole way through. I feel almost manipulated from start to finish.
Yeah, I was thinking of having Machete on my list too, but I think in the end I didn't have it.
Yeah. And as soon as he said, okay, I can have to go to these next. No, so you think that's depressing? You just go to the source of pure depression. Yeah.
Well, L'Argent's more horror than depression.
Yeah, but when Bresson goes depressing,
I'm sticking to it.
When Bresson goes depressing, he goes depressing.
Jesus.
He just tells the truth. He just tells the truth.
Yeah, it's still quite horrific, I must say. Like, I have to say, like, it's still...
Yeah. But Unfilmed just is a bit more cheerful at the start, but it's more accumulation of a marriage going wrong, and it's more subtle in a way. So it's... But also kicked with a punch for depression too, just in case you want to be too cheerful. Don't worry.
Yeah, I mean, I can see if you like kids, Machete could be depressing, I guess.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
If you rate them as being useful.
Yes.
How's the cats?
Fine. Calm down.
Right. I'm just waiting for them to assassinate you at some point during this podcast.
At least I know when I die in my sleep, they'll at least eat my soft, fleshy parts so they won't starve.
Oh, that's good. That's kind to you.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, so my turn again. Yeah. I'm going to mention a couple films from the Japanese master of bleakness. So Kenshi Mizoguchi. So I have Life of Oharu and Sancho the Bailiff. Again, these are just
Sancho. Yeah, that's Sancho the Bailiff as well. So I'll take that
out. Yeah. So such depressing films that show this kind of patriarchal, hierarchical society that screws every woman and also most men. Again, only the people in power basically have it good, but the rest of the world is suffering. And Sancho the Bailiff has one of my favorite quotes of all time, that even if you are hard on yourself, be merciful to others. But the world that Mizoguchi shows here is the complete opposite of that. It shows how selfish people are. And even if you have some good people there, they cannot change anything themselves because the system is so corrupt. So individuals have no power. So it's a very kind of determinist world that Mizoguchi shows here, and also how he frames the shots and the contrast with the black and white. It's so bleak and dark as well. Like, for example, in the beginning of The Life of Oharu, it just makes you depressed immediately, even before the story starts. But yeah, very bleak and dark films that, even maybe even bleaker than The Human Condition.
Yeah, apparently Judd Apatow is going to remake them.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, by the way, I was going to also mention this at the same time, Red Angel by Masumura, because it's similar thematically. Again, we see the impact on women, and it's a war film. So, yeah, it just shows how awful those Japanese soldiers were. So it's not a jingoistic, awful war film that like they make in America, but it's actually critical of war. It's an anti-war film, and it shows the darkness and evilness of people. So that's how I like them.
Yeah, Scorsese is going to remake that with Jennifer Lawrence.
Actually would watch.
The doctor can be Mark Wahlberg. So.
It just swears a lot for no reason.
Bradley Cooper. Yeah. Nice. Right choice. I'd go for Invasion of the Body Snatchers. You can pick any one of these. That does skirt the line of horror, but I don't think it's really horrific until the end. I think that's the bit where everybody goes, "Oh, that just fucked me up," just right at the very end. It was kind of like losing the sense of yourself, what's going on, kind of more of a mystery film. And then we get to, like I say, that end with Donald Sutherland. This idea that there are people walking on instruments. It's the mimics.
The cat's taking over Ronan. It's the cats are pod people.
Yes. Send them mice.
Imitating a parrot at the moment. It's doing a really great parrot impression. It's kind of sit on your shoulder thing. Yes, this idea sort of mimics the Thing and this idea, are you who you say you are kind of thing. So it definitely has horror overtones, but I don't think it's until the very end, like I say, that it really kicks in. It says that, but yeah, great film.
Yeah. I think your family and friends not being your family and friends anymore is pretty horrific.
Yeah, indeed.
For people who have family and friends, of course.
Yeah.
I should have actually added this to Larjon, but there's a couple of Orson Welles. The Trial.
Yes.
Again, being told you've been arrested for something, but never finding out what crime you're supposed to have committed. the faceless nature of the justice system, nobody giving you answers. I think the perception of the justice system is you can get lost in the system without being guilty, even. In the trial with empty corridors and decaying records, just the beautiful cinematography kind of enhances that, and touch of evil just from the gallery of grotesques. Obviously, you've got the pre-Psycho Mattel, the gang sexual assault on Janet Leigh, Orson Welles in his fat suit, Marlene Dietrich almost unrecognizable, obviously Charlton Heston as a Mexican, obviously.
Yeah.
But again, just the brooding. It's one of those films, perhaps along with the Texas Chainsaw, that could almost be in smell-o-vision, just to smell Marlene Dietrich's chili and see if it's as good as what Orson Welles says it is. But again, just that oppressive nature. The black and white's almost too black and white. Orson Welles was very good.
I also had the trial on my list.
Yeah.
Just captures Kafka so well with that kind of claustrophobic and anxious cinematography that it has. And
the ceilings in his flat at the start almost seem abnormally low.
Yeah, I was again surprised you didn't have this earlier. I never bothered because I knew the trial was definitely going to be one of your ones. So I'm going for The Sweet Smell of Success and The Man in the White Suit, which are. I mean, Sweet Smell of Success is brutal about the entertainment business and or just business itself, how nasty people can be and how they can manipulate people and how they don't treat anyone else's lives as something significant. And plus, you have two of the most grotesque characters at the center of it, with Burt Lancaster and Tony Curtis. I mean, the Lancaster initially seems the most horrible, but Curtis kind of, by the time you get to the end, you pretty much loathe him as well for how awful he is. And then you've got The Man in the White Suit, which came earlier, which is another Alexander McKendrick film, which is about industry, and they create a suit that doesn't need to ever be cleaned, and it's just about how industry will destroy innovation just to keep making money and however it is. And the good thing is, with both these films, they're both very funny, even if they're very dark, and they've got this nasty kind of nightmarish quality, the sense of human lives just been a cog in the machine for, industry and making money, and that's it. That's all that matters. Human beings are not really, they don't matter at all. I mean, it could be used as lady kills as well, but I would just stuck to those two.
Yeah, it's about the crushing of dreams and hope and naivety. It's just they're all just mulched.
Yeah. So I think that kind of thing's horrific, but we don't ever think it's horror film. But you watch the films; they're pretty horrific for some of the stuff that happens.
And you can throw some parallels from that to, for example, the pharmaceutical industry in America today. How they develop these drugs, but they aren't gonna give them away if they. Unless they can make like so much profit and stuff. So not the most evil industries in the world.
Yeah. So it's your choice now, our little redneck.
Yeah. So the rest of the films I don't have on physical media, so I have a letterboxd list open for them. But I'm gonna go with an animated film called The Plague Dogs. It's from the director of Watership Down, and I actually haven't seen Watership Down. It's a big blind spot of mine, but The Plague Dogs it's just so scary. It's about these two dogs that escape a kind of animal testing lab, and then they are hunted down, and it just shows how much suffering animals have to go through because of people. And I think this film is something that will get scarier and scarier as time goes on, because I'm pretty sure that people in 100 years from now will look in the past and see like what we did to animals, and with absolute horror. So yeah, it's such an horrific and scary film, one of the most depressing films I've ever seen. So
Well, people will be slaves to cats by that time. So
All right, yeah.
Well, speaking of animals, I'll show off. People
Well,
probably
Chris.
know. Sorry, Chris.
Yeah.
Oh no, you can go ahead because I'm at the very end of my patch, so I'll fill in. I'll do my honorable mentions at the
Sorry,
end.
I just jumped in at the thought of
You were
animals.
so excited.
Yeah.
Yes, I was. It was just because it was a perfect segue
All right.
into the film that's probably given me the most willies, even although this has, it's probably sci-fi, but you could probably argue it's horror anyway. It's Phase 4.
Yes.
I will avoid avoid going anywhere near a dead man in the desert with his fist clenched, because if I open his fist, little ants might come out. You could also put in a certain section of Creepshow, but obviously that is officially a horror film. But Phase 4, there's a couple of scenes that have always creeped me out involving holes and little six-legged creatures either going in or out of those holes. Sorry, that was a bit anticlimactic now. Chris!
What'll I go for? I'll go for... This is tenuous at this stage, I will say that, right? But let's go for the Harry Potter movies, which have an element of horror in them for young kids, insofar as scary dogs, a guy with not really much of a face, that kind of stuff. And they were always released sort of between Halloween and Christmas, I think, for that kind of reason in the cinema, because they kind of fit the vibe of the cold and the scary and the creepy a little bit. Even
Plus
though
the acting.
I was just about to get there. Plus all of these young kids whose acting was probably the most scary part of a lot of it. So yeah, Harry Potter.
Okay, I'm going to go for Graveyard of Honor and Battle Royale. The same director. One's early, one later. Basically, Graveyard of Honor is one of the scariest gangster films I've seen because the guy's a lunatic. This film's so insane that Takeshi Miike made a remake that wasn't as deranged as the original. You know, even he couldn't live up to the original for insanity, because this guy they're talking about in this film is so nuts that it's actually creepy to watch, because it's like a self-destructive, weird person who causes all this trouble, and it's like you always get these characters in gangster movies where they're the one that's out of control, like Joe Pesci in the Scorsese films, but they're nothing compared to this guy. This guy is genuinely out of control and terrifying. So just the idea of someone being crazy and violent, how scary that can be, especially if you're doing a film when you're with him the whole time. And you've also got Battle Royale, which is the idea of putting the kid, it's a sci-fi idea, just putting the kids on an island is like go and kill each other for entertainment, and it's also punishment for you lot being a bunch of scumbags who hate you. The idea of the adults hate the kids that much they make them do this. I just think it's a really scary idea. It's very kind of outrageous comic book, but you know, Putin, you know, wouldn't he think that was a cool idea? You know, other dictators you can think of might think, yeah, that could be funny. You know, it's outrageous, but you know, you can see some dictators doing it. So that's why those two get my vote for scary.
Yeah, so I'm gonna go with another animated film. It's from Japan, so it's Angel's Egg from Mamoru Oshii. So he's the director who made Ghost in the Shell. But this film is just it's situated in like a post-apocalyptic world, and it's just again bleak and dark. It has lots of religious allegory and weirdness, and it's kind of very hopeless, kind of like, for example, Germany Year Zero. Even though this isn't a war film, but it's kind of hopeless in a same way that it's a world that there is no light, there's again no hope or no love. It's just all darkness. But yeah, it's mostly, again, kind of like a horror film due to the visuals and the atmosphere, but also just the whole world. Yeah, but it's a great film, and I think it's finally getting lots of recognition when people used to never talk about it, but now people say that it's a masterpiece. And yeah, I think it's one of the best animated films of all time. So,
Cool.
Great shout. Ghost in the Shell is its own right. Both that and the sequel Innocence are great shouts as well.
Yeah.
Because they have that kind of cybernetic kind of future of man versus machine in its own right.
Well, it's your turn, Chris.
It's my turn. I could have went for just Ghost in the Shell 1 and 2, but let's go for Monsters Inc. because it's about people being scared. And in another Disney film, and empowering the world and people's scares. Like, what's more frightening than that? Especially young kids. Again, if you like them, Ronan. If you're into that whole family thing, stealing kids out of their rooms. There's a monster under your bed. Again, plays in all of the archetypes of horror films. And
yeah, once again, it's the humans that are actually the real monsters.
Yep.
Giving Billy Crystal a franchise, that's quite scary.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go to the Philippines, as I often do, and Ode to Nothing, which is a Canny release, which is one of Vinegar Syndrome's best partner labels. You can't really see much, unfortunately, because it's a very grey. It's the story of a woman who works in a family mortuary business or undertaker business. She's struggling with debt, and a body of an old woman comes in, and she starts having a relationship with it, not in any naughty way, but just she starts recognizing perhaps herself in it, her future. She starts talking to it, and again, some people would view this as a horror film, but it's actually a very compassionate film about loneliness, and kind of the only person you can actually relate to and talk to is actually a corpse. I would highly recommend it. It's another wonderful Filipino film. And like quite a lot of Vinegar Syndrome partner labels that are probably better than Vinegar Syndrome, there's lots of extras on the Canny release as well.
Sweet. Never seen that one. This is my last double bill. I've got my Chewing Candidate and Seconds, which are both like horrific. I mean, Chewing Candidate's a famous one. That's the one about the soldiers who get mind controlled. You caught during the Korean War. There's mind control and the setup, and it's all about the Red Scare, which happens in politics a lot, where you get a kind of crazy crazy person creates paranoia and madness in the world. We're going through that just now with Trump, and let's hope that ends soon. And then Seconds is about a guy trying to relive his life, because there's a thing for older guys who can get a new body to relive their lives, and how it turns into a nightmare, really, because they can't readjust to the new world and a new body and a new look, and when people think they're. And it's just the idea of how the bodies, people cannot adjust. They have their lives, have their bodies, and it's about the physicality of not being able to adjust to a new kind of life. And so it could be a metaphor for moving somewhere and not being able to adjust, or it could be a metaphor for moving on to another place in your life and not being able to do with it. But this is just the Frankenheimer version, which is like lots of weird close-ups and this sense of alienation within your own inability to change what you are. So they're both about transformations going wrong, really, in this sense of paranoia within America in the 60s, but it could take place at any time because human nature doesn't change.
Indeed.
I guess another one I thought maybe Ronan would have chosen, so I was leaving until the end.
Oh, that was far too cerebral for me.
All right. You went talking to corpses.
I'm just down with talking to corpses.
All right.
So I'm gonna go back to Rossellini. Actually, my favorite Rossellini film, Europe 51. So it's about this middle class family, and Ingrid Bergman is the main character, and their family faces a tragedy, and then she actually starts having empathy and compassion towards people who are again poor, and she goes to these poor people and starts to help them. But then her family and the rest of the high society think that she's actually crazy, because she has compassion for other people, because she has empathy, because she wants to help other people, and they throw her in the insane asylum due to that, because she's helping people and finally has conscience and is trying to again make the world a better place. And that just says so much about our world, how again selfishness is seen as a virtue and compassion and empathy aren't, like how people idolize people like Elon Musk, who are just total sociopaths, when we should idolize people who actually help other people, who actually put other people over themselves, do something good for the world. But people are just, Andrew Tate, Elon Musk, this other piece of shit, and they idolize them. And it's just such a dark thing in the world, and it just makes me anxious every day following this stuff. But yeah.
Cool. Yep. So how's everyone for the lists? I mean, basically, are we on the dregs now, or are we?
We're on the
Yeah,
dregs. I'll show you how much we're on the dregs. I've got The Woodsman in the Rain, right? Which is a film about the making of a zombie movie. There's pretty nothing scary about it at all, aside from the fact that we have a man who he wants nothing to do with is now the advisor to a zombie movie. It's fun. And then Kiki's Delivery Service, which is about a witch. She doesn't do anything aside from riding a broom, but she's a witch. That's how tenuous we're at. That's me done.
Right.
Well, I have a filmmaker who has traditionally nothing to do with horror, but there's horror elements in rather a lot of his films. It's Michael Powell. So obviously Tales of Hoffman, you could stretch it to it's actually a Dracula story or a vampire story. Obviously the Venice sequence is partially horror. You can go parts of Canterbury Tale, Spy in Black, Red Shoes. There's plenty of others. I Know Where I'm Going has a more kind of almost folk horror-y element to it. So obviously Peeping Tom, but that's included in the kind of horror serial killer genre. But there's little elements of horror in sections of Michael Powell films. Small Back Room as well.
You got anything else?
A couple of more traditional Hollywood films. No Country for Old Men you could see as a slasher stalker film quite easily. And obviously After Hours has a nightmarish quality to it. And again, almost a fated that there's nothing that's within Griffin Dunn's actual power that he can stop it.
Yep.
Not much else, really.
No.
Yeah.
What about you, Mr. Redneck?
Yeah, so I have Woman in the Dunes by Hiroshi Teshigahara. So not much to say about that one. It's just the atmosphere and that sense of being trapped again in the dunes in this small cabin. That's pretty scary.
Finally saw that recently. So.
Yeah, and obviously from the same director, you could have gone with The Face of Another as well. Again, Nazari mentioned Seconds, and Face of Another is quite similar to that.
Yeah.
But then I also have Letter Never Sent, which is about these people being stuck in a forest and there's a fire, and it has some like horror-esque imagery, I would say. Yeah. And then I have Bellatar's Werkmeister Harmonies, which is kind of how masses can turn fascist so easily. Like they just see this whale in the marketplace and then they just, let's go march and let's become fascist. So when you see something new, you can just people go backwards so quickly because they are scared of society changing. And then you have one more, a modern film called Lingua Franca from this up-and-coming director Isabel Sandoval. So it's about this undocumented Filipina migrant in America, and she is kind of scared of getting deported. So it kind of shows how awful it is for these migrants who just want to find a better life, who want to work, find love just like other people. But then society is so against them, and obviously this is just so relevant currently, like how Trump and Elon Musk and these people are talking about immigrants that they are eating dogs. Stuff like that. Just even though they are the sociopath fucking idiots that we should get rid of and not the migrants. Yeah.
Okay, so I had three left basically. I had Vengeance is Mine, which is a Japanese film a serial killer, but it's not done as a horror movie. It's just done as a scary thing about this guy who causes havoc for everybody around him. It's just like a horrors of what being near a psychopath would actually be like, rather than doing a horror film. I'd Eyes Wide. What's that?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that Sion Sono saw Vengeance is Mine when he did Goldfish, because they're similar, I would say.
Yeah. Eyes Wide Shut, which is just a nightmare logic, and a guy going through a situation that could be dreaming, or and just the idea of this society's, some people are important to society, some people aren't, and if you're a doctor or something, you're minor compared to the rich people. So it's kind of the social horrors, and which always happens in society. And Night of the Hunter, which is a nightmare logic dealing with children, and it's shot as if it's a baby story.
It suddenly started snowing where I am.
Yeah, so we had a little hunter there. So those are my 3 other ones, basically. But I didn't really have that much to say about them. We're just like add-ons, really. So.
Good choices.
Yeah, so it was easier than we thought it was. Horror's everywhere. It doesn't actually have to be in horror films.
Yeah, it's better when it's not.
Yeah, but most of these films are just bleak and depressing, and not that.
Yes. Yeah, bleakness and depression are the new horror.
Mm-hmm.
Horror's optimistic because at least there's some blood.
Realism.
And usually maybe somebody survives, whereas in reality nobody survives.
Yeah. And we showed some directors where you can go through their filmography, you find even more horror involved. Yeah. So it's we're nice and cheerful here.
Yes.
Be happy that we cheered you up with this wonderful list.
Nice.
Yes. So does anyone have anything to add to
enjoy watching horror films? They're more upbeat than what we've just talked about.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. That's what I think. I hope we have depression Halloween, and it's maybe cheerful.
Dear God. Yeah.
Yes, it's supposed to be a happy time.
Yeah. Yeah. If you want a fun Halloween film to watch, try Trick or Treat or Abigail. They're fun with lots of blood and gore and fun stuff rather than all this stuff.
I would suggest Freddy vs. Jason.
Yeah, that's good fun as well. Renfield's fun as well.
The Covenant, perhaps.
Silent Night, Deadly Night.
Yeah. We're trying to give you fun stuff now, please.
Or The Happening.
Yes. Oh, yeah. Got a good laugh happening.
That's true horror.
Jesus.
Yeah,
why, where, when, how, why, how, who.
Yeah. Not the plant.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I hope you enjoyed this, and thank you for everyone who came and made the list. So thank you, Redneck.
Yes,
thank you, Chris. You're enjoying your meal.
Mm-hmm.
And thank you, Ronan, and we'll see you later.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.